Get ready for Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. Ignite your spirit and fuel your passion for life with inspiring stories, empowering guests, and transformative ideas. Whether you're pursuing dreams, overcoming challenges, or seeking a spark of positivity, you're in the right place. Together, we'll explore resilience, creativity, and our limitless potential. So, sit back and prepare to be inspired. Let's unlock incredible possibilities on Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm very excited to welcome you to this power-packed episode this morning. We invite you to stay tuned for our very special guest, Anna Jinja. She's the author of Adopting Grace and the host of the Anna Jinja Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for this wonderful episode of Purpose Today.
Looking for inspiration, motivation, and the good news of Jesus Christ? Look no further. The Daily Gospel Network has what you need. With more than 300 ministries from all over the country broadcasting every week, you're sure to get your dose of spirit-filled encouragement from the great programs on the Daily Gospel Network. Catch the Daily Gospel Network on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, all mobile devices, and the internet.
Welcome back to Purpose Today. I am Dr. April Dobson and very excited to welcome our very special guest to the show, Anna Jinja. She is the author of Adopting Grace and the host of the Anna Jinja Show. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this conversation.
You're very welcome, and it's such a pleasure to have you here on the show today. And so we've had an opportunity to talk, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know about you, but I want to also ensure that our viewers have an opportunity to get to know you as well. So can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Anna Jinja, and I loved our pre-conversation because one of my favorite books is Anne of Green Gables, and she always talks about kindred spirits, and I felt like you are definitely a kindred spirit. And so I host the Anna Jinja Show, and I feature stories about adoption and foster care. And then I add a little element, which is a creative element, inviting musicians and poets to learn about these stories and create works of art based on the stories of our guests. And we have what we call these creative collisions during our 28-minute conversation to be able to really connect us to who we are and who we are meant to be, and to embrace all the things that make us ourselves. Even though we think we don't have anything in common, I have so many people say, I'm not an adoptee, I'm not part of the foster care system, but we all have these like central questions that we ask ourselves. Who am I? Where do I belong? Who am I? And all those kind of questions. And so we answer them together during those 28 minutes. And then as we talked, I wrote a novel. I'm chewing my nails because it was such a wonderful process writing it, but publishing it is very scary. And so I'm just happy to have people like you who provided support and care as I go through this journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Anna. And, for me, it's been such a joy to have had an opportunity to meet you virtually and to have some extended conversation with you. So I'm very excited that I have an opportunity to introduce you to all the viewers of Purpose Today. I believe there's a lot that you have to share that can be valuable to a lot of people who are watching. And I love that statement that you made. Even though people may not be adopted or have gone through a foster care process, we all have something that connects us. We all have something that we can do. And I know that was something that you talked with me about, that we adopt different practices and values and things throughout our lifetime. And hopefully we can unpack that a little bit. So before we talk about the journey that you had, I just want you to share with our audience, because it was so impacting to me when we were having a conversation and you were just sharing how, we adopt different things. And as many of the viewers might know, I'm an Air Force veteran, and I had an opportunity to travel all around the world and meet so many different people from different backgrounds and cultures. So just what's one example or a couple of examples of different things that people may adopt throughout their lifetime, even if they're not an adoptee?
Yeah, well, thank you for your service, of course, first. And I think the example of I do open the show like we all experience adoption in our lives. When I moved to England, I didn't know anybody, just the partner that I had. And so it was a scary experience. And I'm an outsider that doesn't know anything about really the culture other than I know that I love an English accent. And so being able to adopt a group of people that really helped me, lift me, and adopted me into their community made such a difference, because when you're navigating through a foreign country and you're trying to find your way, it's the people that make a difference, and
Right.
people and place. And so a lovely lady named Kate Walton invited me to be part of her group called Wild Words and Wisdom. And she said, it's a group of creatives. And I said, I'm not a creative. I just have written a couple of pages and they're crap. She said, but they're your crap. And what I learned from Kate is that when somebody adopts you into a community like Wild Words of Wisdom, these wonderful human beings that were just trying to be creative and to be able to put their works out into the world, even if it was just our circle, it makes a huge difference. It's a transformative experience of saying, I see you, I support you, and I love that you are trying to do something to add something different to this world or share who you are with the rest of the world. And so I think that I had nothing in common with any of the individuals that were part of that group. I wasn't a musician. I wasn't a painter, all that. But then we found ways to be able to say, are you nervous that someone's going to hate this work of art? Yes, I'm nervous. And so those shared experiences connect us and make us feel alive and part of this world. And that's what I mean by just adopting what are my values? Who am I? I think about myself when I was 12 or 13, trying to figure out, like, do I love AC/DC? Am I a metalhead, or am I a punk rocker? What am I? And so all of us go through that to figure out, like, those things that we adopt that make us authentic in this world, to say, you know what, I really don't like, I do like heavy metal, but maybe I don't like this genre of music, or I don't like to drink wine, but other people tell me to do. And so it's finding those things that make us who we are.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, to find what makes us who we are. I think it's important for us to be authentic. And I think it's also important for us to value the skills and the gifts that we have, who we are, and, to see ourselves right. And I think sometimes as we're navigating through life, we have different moments. We have different moments that help us to pivot, personally and professionally. And I know you have a very interesting story about how you pivoted professionally. So could you tell us a little bit about, that experience and that journey and what caused you to pivot?
Yeah, so when I came back from England, I went back to my home state, which is Iowa. And I knew, nursing a broken heart, I needed to go back home. And so I accepted a position professionally with an organization called Able Up Iowa that worked with people with disabilities. I had nonprofit background, and so that's why I was selected for that job. But then what happened is that I had a young man that was placed with my organization who said, I really want to get into podcasting and broadcasting. And so we met with the community radio station to explore that idea about whether or not to train or use their equipment. And they said, why don't you just have a radio show? And that definitely was a huge pivot for me, because I really had never thought that I would ever entertain the idea of hosting a radio show, hosting and producing. But we did, because I saw Daniel, that he was super excited about it. I saw him light up, and we had tried a couple other jobs and it wasn't working, but he said yes to this one. So then I was kind of pushed into saying, yes, I'll do this. And then we got into the radio station, and our very first show, inexperienced, I had booked 20 guests because I didn't want to have dead space. That's way too many guests, because it's basically, hello, you're on the show, goodbye, kind of thing. But Daniel said in the moment, so Anna, do you mind if I go off script? I said no. So he said, I realize why I'm doing this show is because when I was 6 years old and diagnosed of being autistic, and my parents who are listening, I know that we're not alone, that we're doing this show for those that are like my parents and me, that I'm not alone. That was a huge moment to pivot to say, I want to be part of something that like touches the lives, even if it's just the other two people, that mom and that dad listening, to say that your kid is this amazing human being who has so many stories and great questions to ask. And so for me, that moment was that, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. And that causes you to do that shift into what you're talking about, that purpose today. It shifted me into purpose. And so professionally, that has changed my life in that it's not a profession. The podcasting business for me has not generated income, but for me, it has generated purpose. Every time I get into that studio and I'm with the guest, I think, how can I bring my best self to this situation and honor their story? And that's exciting to be able to do that every week, to be able to do that.
That is awesome. And, I'm so excited to hear that you're doing what you love, that you're doing something that's really, impacting to people. I think that's really important. We didn't have an opportunity to talk about it, but one of the first positions that I ever had, and it wasn't the first, but it was one of the first positions that I ever had, was in radio broadcasting. So prior to joining the Air Force, I spent 4 years in radio broadcasting, absolutely loved it. And so when you said you invited 20 guests, I knew exactly what you meant when you said it was just a high and bye, because that was just too many guests for one show. But ultimately, there's so many people I know that you've impacted from your show around the world. And, certainly, we can talk offline about, what you're doing and how you can expand what you're doing to increase, revenue. There are so many people who want to start a podcast. They don't know how to start a podcast. So many people who want to write a book and they don't know how to write a book. And so coaching might be an opportunity, for you to show people, here's how you start a podcast, step A to Z, or talk show or radio, host a show. And here's how you write a book. And here's how you start and here's how you finish. So that's certainly an opportunity that you might be able to explore down the road. But I know that for you, you said that this was not something that you had planned. It just kind of organically happened and you felt the desire. You saw that it was aligning with, with the purpose. Had you ever considered doing that before? And
No, I didn't. And I think partly because I was intimidated by the fact of like having to produce content on a weekly basis. That was scary. I've never liked my voice. So I thought, oh, I can't do radio because anytime I would listen to my voice, I'd be like, ooh. And, I think I shared with you as well, the reason why I named the show the Anna Jinja Show is for most of my life, I did not want to talk about my adoption story. Jinja is the name that the adoption agency gave me. That's what my parents saw when they were selecting their child to adopt. And so they kept Jinja. I was adopted from Korea from the Holt agency. But I would never say my middle name for most of my life because people would ask, what is that? And it would just spotlight my differences. And so I just didn't want to do it. And so now moving into this, again, leaning into my purpose, it forces me to say every week my name, which is the Anna Jinja Show. And still people ask me that, like, so what is that? How do you say that? And so for me, it is being brave and having the courage. I talked about Anna Green Gables being my favorite book. And one of the scenes in one of the chapters, she uses lemons that she thinks are lemons to wipe away her freckles. And so I did that. I tried to wipe away my middle name. I tried to wipe away how I looked. And so when you do something like a podcast project, it has to be your purpose and it has to be your passion because you don't know what the financial impact is going to be. You really just have to love it. And like I said, Dr. Dobson, every single time I get into that studio and I hear that story and I hear that interaction and that conversation, I had a young person on the show a couple weeks ago who said, I have to earn my place in this world as an adoptee. I have to prove that I belong in this family, that I belong in the football team or to the class. And I said, I just want you to take a second and think about, you don't have to earn your way in this world. Your purpose is here and evident in that the very fact that you are on this earth. You are a beautiful, beloved child. And so just embrace that for a second. And, this young person almost broke into tears because no one had said that. And for me, if that makes a difference for this young person's life to know he doesn't have to earn his way in this world. He
Right.
does not. That's a big thing.
That's awesome. I think making those impacts, it's really what makes a difference. And, you even said something earlier about, originally not wanting to use Jinja because you didn't want the differences to be identified. But there's a lot of value that comes in our differences and embracing the differences. But even with our differences, we have something that unites us. So, is there anything that you've just learned over your lifetime about differences, embracing the differences, and then finding ways to be united despite our differences that you could share with our viewers?
Oh, I love that question so much. I think that, all those things that make us different that we try to deny, like Anna Green Gables not wanting red hair and freckles. But she wouldn't be Anna Green Gables if she didn't have those freckles and red hair. And I think that how boring would this world be if we all looked the same, thought the same way, did the same thing all the time. What's interesting about conversations in your podcast is that so many different perspectives and life experiences for us to be able to learn. I don't want to be a skydiver ever because I'm just so scared of that.
Me
But
either.
you have to listen, like what happened to, with your skydiving experience, or to have a movie and be able to like do something or experience something that's completely different than my life and who I am. And I think that when we are afraid of differences, and from that fear comes hate many times, because we are fearful of the other and of differences, then that's the part where we shrink our world into a very narrow idea of who we can be. And when we expand that, it doesn't mean that you have to agree with that. I always say, you know what, you may not like me. You might find me incredibly annoying. You might think I procrastinate. I sometimes eat with my mouth open, which is terrible. My nieces are like, where are your manners, Auntie Anna? I'm like, yeah, that's right. So you might not want to have a meal with me. I don't know. But you can start with the point that I have inherent worth in this world, and that
Yes.
I deserve to be here. But you don't have to hang out with me. In fact, don't hang out with me if you don't like me. I don't want to sit across from you scowling at me all day. But I do think that there are ways to open our hearts to be curious and
Yeah.
say, there are times where I've been on a plane where I'm like, "Ugh, I'm not talking to that person. They look like a little bit of a wackadoodle." And I've had the best conversations because I've asked the question, so tell me more about yourself. I just had that experience a couple of weeks ago where I automatically dismiss the person based on their looks and their behavior. And now I'll fast forward, she is a little bit of a wackadoodle. She is. But what I learned is that she has this amazing life and this amazing philosophy about exploring the world and experiencing everything that she can because she only has 2 months to live on this world.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
if I hadn't opened my heart to be curious, I would have totally missed out on this incredible woman's story.
Thank you for sharing that. So, I think the bottom line is we have to, keep our minds and our hearts open, to embrace people for, the differences. We don't have to always agree, but there's some common ground that we can find. So, thank you for sharing that. And, I know you talked a little bit about your time in England and then relocating back to Iowa and, starting the talk show and then the podcast and then pivoting the radio show to focus on different inspiring stories that help people who have either been adopted or who've been fostered, but it just brings a lot of value, to the table. So how has your life changed since you've made this pivot professionally?
Well, I think it's a lot like volunteering. So a lot of times I hear when people go and volunteer for a nonprofit that they say, I get more out of it than the organization or the people that we're serving. And the same goes for this passion project. I've learned so much about myself. I'm now able to say my name on a weekly basis, and I'm asking questions about myself. So why do I respond this way? Does it have to do with my adoption story? I didn't even know that this thing was possible. And another guest will share with me their experience and their journey to finding their biological family. And I had been so closed off for 47 years of my life to not ask those questions. And how sad is that, that I didn't have the courage to do that. And so it's changed for me in that I am much more open and much stronger to be able to say, if I ask this question, I think I was concerned that I'm going to reject myself and hate myself even more. And now what I realize is that I can be asked those questions and might go in a completely different direction than somebody else. But if I don't ask that question enough, if I don't highlight and understand what is the truth, and if I've been lying to myself for all this time, then I do a disservice to myself. And hopefully I'll have the next 20 years to be able to like explore that even more, because when I look back, I'm like, oh, sad, Anna. That's so sad that you weren't able to ask those questions. And so I've received so much more from being able to step into this than I think that the guests get when they come into that studio.
That's awesome. And, you know, I know you talked about the transformation and how this has really changed your life. And, you know, one thing that you mentioned a little bit about earlier that I know came from like a life change and from seeing things differently was your book that you authored. So can you tell us more about Adopting Grace and how you came to write the book?
Yeah, well, that is one thing that I've always wanted to do. When I was little, I wanted to be a writer. And then when I got in my 20s and 30s, I would write some things, and then people would ask, Anna, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a professional reject. I get rejection letters every day. And so I set it aside. But when I moved to England, I wanted to process my lived experience being an adoptee and a failed relationship. And I did not want to write, you know, a journal or anything like that. I wanted to fictionalize it, write what I know, and just fictionalize it to protect the innocent and the not so innocent. And so, as I was writing it from 6 in the morning till 8 in the morning, that was my time because I'm a morning person. My dog's a morning person. My partner at the time was not a morning person, so I figured that was a time that I could spend to this creative endeavor. And when I did share this with my partner, his response was that this is a self-indulgent activity that is selfish and is doing nothing if it doesn't generate revenue. And it's not going to generate revenue unless you're good at it, and you're not good at it. And that is like, that was such a blow to me because I wasn't doing it during, you know, the time that I was working on our business or anything like that. And also it felt like such a rejection of something that was so sacred to me to be able to like create the story of Grace. Ironically, the character's name is Grace, and to not have Grace extended to me or to the project. And so I found, like I said, Kate and Claire Steele, who are these amazing creatives in England, who said, that's a bunch of rubbish. And they said it in that beautiful English accent and said, so embrace it and do it. And they walked me through this journey. And
That's
when
awesome.
I got to Iowa, I was finishing it up because I was working and workshopping it with a group that were in England. I get up at 4 in the morning, guys, 4 in the morning, um, out of bed. And then we would workshop our projects together. And then I met this woman through my work at Able of Iowa, the organization I worked with, whose mother had written books like Chicken Soup for those parents with children with disabilities. And so I got connected to her daughter, who was starting a small publishing company. And she said, I want to publish your story. I never thought that it was going to happen. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Okay, great. And when it happened, and so it is happening now, it is so frightening for me. And so for all those who understand, like when you write something, like invest so much time and energy, and then all those voices in your head that you're not good enough, it's terrible, it's a self-indulgent activity, are playing in my head. But I think that putting it out in the world, again, is that step of courage and transformation and purpose. Again, if it helps one person understand an experience that I had as an adoptee that can connect to Grace, the main character, that's a wonderful gift.
Fantastic. And I do, you know, just want to, for, you know, for anyone who's, you know, taking a look on the screen, and you see the website there. If you also want to find Adopting Grace on Amazon, there is a link to do that. So very exciting. But again, you can go to the Anna Jinja Show link, and you can also find it there as well. So very excited that I can share that information with our viewers, and hope that that book can be inspiring to many of you who are watching. And so if we have anyone who is interested in, connecting with you, are there any other ways for them to connect with you at this time?
Yeah, they can always email me at hello@annajinja.com. I'm always happy to receive emails and just answer your questions, as far as when I think about those that are like afraid of expressing themselves in creative ways. Like, my best tips are surround yourself with people who support you and who believe in you and who will support you in those process. And then the second thing is take classes. I think that's the other thing, is and find these groups of people that of individuals that like our writing group, or a painting class, or anything that you can do to support yourself in this process. Because I know that you have experience coaching people to be their best. And so I don't know what other advice that you have, but when somebody rips you down where you feel like you can't and that you're not supposed to be doing that, I think there's got to be other ways to be able to help say, yes, I can. I got this. You got this. And I'm cheering for you. I know that you're cheering for individuals to be their best selves by just doing something creative.
Absolutely. And, I think the biggest piece of advice that I can tell people is to really follow your purpose, follow your desire. If there's something that you're dreaming about doing, then go ahead and do it. If you're thinking that you need to pivot, then you need to pivot. Go ahead and pivot. But I think, that's excellent advice, Anna. I think, that people should find, groups that will, or mentors or coaches who will, help, get them in that direction. But at the end of the day, I think it's so important for people to go after what it is that they're dreaming about. So I have your email address there, hello@annajinja.com. And for the email for anyone who wants to reach out to you. And then again, the AnnaJinjaShow.com as your website. Well, certainly this has been a pleasure, Anna. I feel like we could talk all morning, but I know that we will need to say goodbye to all of our viewers for now. And thank you so much for being a guest on Purpose today. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you to all of our viewers for watching. So thank you again, Anna.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you everyone for viewing, and we really appreciate you, and we encourage you to be purposed today and every day. And we hope to see you on our next episode of Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. And we have a very exciting guest on our next show, Jackie Brown, with Shifting Success. So thank you again, Anna, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for watching Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. It's been such a pleasure to have you all on the show today. If you feel you need to pivot but don't know how, email us at admin@purposetoday.com. And we thank you and encourage you to be purpose today and every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. Our mission is to ignite your spirit and fuel your passion for life. Join us next time for more inspiring stories, empowering guests, and transformative ideas that uplift and motivate. Whether you're chasing dreams, facing challenges, or just seeking a spark of positivity, we're here to inspire you. Together, we'll explore resilience, creativity, and the limitless potential within us all. So, until next time, stay inspired from your friends at Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson.